This episode of Badass Agents Podcast is brought to you by Jason Smith team at Nova Home Loans. Jason, a Navy veteran, has been recognized as one of the top 100 loan originators in the country. There is no task too big or too small for the Jason Smith team. Every client counts. For the best rates and great service, contact Jason at 480-227-6231 or visit novahomeloans.com. I personally stand by his service, and so do thousands of satisfied clients. That's Jason Smith at Nova Home Loans, NMLS number 210839. And the problem is we solidify those lies as facts when we surround ourselves with other individuals at the same level or below you. And oftentimes we look for individuals that are below us to make us sound like we're at least doing something more than them. Welcome to another episode of Mindset Mastery. I'm your host, AZ Araujo. And for those of you watching me right now, I'm on my computer. I'm about to send my final reminder because I think this is going to serve many people of what the title is, right? And it might sound a little offensive, but I think you will get it for what the purpose is intended for, right? It is never to demean you. It is never to, insult you, disrespect you of any forms. Like oftentimes when I come up with these mindset masteries, I'm looking at my own experiences. I'm talking to myself, and understand that sometimes we have to talk to ourselves bluntly. We can't sugarcoat it. We've been surrounded by too many people that do that for us already. In fact, if we're not in the body that we want to be, if our marriage is not working the way it should be, if our business is not up to par, we're being cheered on by those that expect mediocrity from you. Because I know that if I'm in a room full of individuals that expect nothing but excellence, I will excel, right? If you're in a room where people all around you expect excellence, you will excel. But yet, some of us are not in those places because, we're not in the right rooms, right? And unfortunately, a lot of these rooms are surrounded by our family and friends, the people we love most, and it's just unfortunate. It's hard to get out of this bucket, right? The crabs in a bucket scenario. And it's not because they're maliciously doing it. It's because they have a limitation of what they expect for themselves. So how can they expect more from you? And we have to understand that, our job is to be able to identify these environments, identify these individuals, and also identify those that will supplement you and complement your ambitions, that will complement your goals. But again, oftentimes we're in this place of, I will hang on to this story, a story that's not necessarily getting me everything that I want, but it is so good and I'm so ingrained into it. I'm so dialed in. I have it so perfectly, said and so perfectly told that I can't let go of this story. Because, it's something that I've been telling for many, many years. And I'm going to tell you what I'm getting at and why I'm bringing this up. Last Wednesday was our last day of our 30-day challenge. If you haven't heard of what the 30-day challenge, go to dothework.com. We're actually starting one on April 30th. And I want to highly encourage you. And I'm telling people around the office, I'm really wanting them to do it. It's not about the money. When you look at the cost versus the reward, it's not about the money, it's about the commitment, right? And I'm almost begging these people, just bet on yourself. Because what I'm seeing on the other side, after the 30 days, all 40 plus individuals that went through it, every aspect of their lives has excelled. Their businesses have excelled. Their relationships have excelled. Their self-confidence and self-worth and certainty has excelled. And with that, right, with individuals reaching out to me on social media, reaching out to me here, even within the office, there's always this excuse. And I want to use a quote, and please don't take offense to this because I too have been in that place. And I've been able to go back a few times where I'm like, man, that's exactly where I was at with these stories that I held on to too long. So let's go ahead and put on that quote, and I'm going to read it to you verbatim. At the end of the day, just say you don't want to do it so you don't sound stupid with your excuses. So again, at the end of the day, just say you don't want to do it or are not committed enough so you don't sound stupid with your excuses. Now, that may seem a little bit direct, right? It may sound offensive. And if you're offended by this, I'm sorry. It's not intended to offend you, right? But it's intended for you to really look at what's required to excel at a high level. And I remember I've been in this place where I've told these excuses to Carla, and she would somewhat accept it, even though she didn't want to. I believed in that story so much she would accept it. And then my family and friends, if I said I couldn't do something or I was too busy, they would just believe that story, right? And it would just solidify the story I was telling for many, many years. And this is the same type of thing that we're getting, like even with this 30-day challenge. You know, people desire, they're almost desperate for change. They hate the way they look. They hate the way they feel. They hate the way their clothes fit. But at the moment it comes to actually making a commitment, the excuses start pouring in. And it's like, I'm too busy. I don't have a babysitter. I work too late. I'm not a morning person. I don't have enough time. It's too expensive. I don't have a gym membership. Blah, 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 right? It's all these things that all of a sudden take precedence over the desire to change the misery we're living in. And we have to start thinking to ourselves, like, how does that sound to somebody that's actually doing all those things and have all those responsibilities? And we all have been in that situation, right? Where you're telling your excuses. You're so passionate about telling why you cannot that when it's someone outside of your circle and all they do is smile like, you're an idiot. You're so dumb. And I've had that in my own life, right? You know, when I was trying to make changes back in 2014 of creating the body that I wanted, a marriage that I wanted, a business that I desired, I came up with all these excuses because my coach and my mentors, they gave me a game plan to follow. But I started saying, well, I'm just really busy. Well, you don't understand. Like, Carla is a certain way. I just can't do the things you're doing with your spouse, going on these date nights, right? Being able to work together with her. And I remember my coaches and my mentors, as I'm telling these stories so passionately because it was my truth. I mean, my mom believed me, my coworkers believed me, my best friends believed me, but yet I run into somebody outside my circle and I remember my coach was looking at me like with this smile, like, you're an idiot. Because I didn't know who my audience was. I did not know who my audience was. And, looking at this back now, I did sound pretty ridiculous. And we have to start poking holes into our stories because I hear that all the time especially in our industry where 90% of agents, 90% are struggling to make a business. And, I'll often hear the story like, I've tried everything. I've tried everything, AZ. Like, I'm doing everything that I'm supposed to do. I've tried everything. I'm like looking at them smiling the same way my coach smiled at me. So if you ever see me smiling as you're giving me your reasons why you cannot, I mean, a part of me is thinking, man, you sound so stupid right now. You sound ridiculous right now. Right? Because you're pretty much saying that you're unique in the fact that you have a lot going on. That you're the only one with kids, that you're the only one with a busy schedule, that you're the only one with responsibility. That's what essentially you're saying. But when you run into a real player that's doing those things at a high level, just expect a smile. But guess what? Your friends and your family, and even your spouse, because you've conditioned them to believe your story, guess what they'll say? Yes, I know you have. You're working so hard, son. You're working so hard, husband. I know it's just tough. It's tough for you. You're so unique. You're the only one that can't make it in this industry. That's essentially what they're telling you, right? That you're so special that you can't make it. When those that do everything, that really do everything, excel at a high level. Know your audience. Because if you get that smile, if they don't necessarily agree with you, it's like, oh yeah, no, that's a valid reason why you're not in shape. That's valid why you don't have a good business. You're probably talking to the wrong person. Because those that know how to play the game, all they'll do is smile at you. And guess what they're thinking? You sound ridiculous. So if we can put that quote up again, you'll know exactly what we mean. Right? At the end of the day, just say you don't want it. Just say you're not as committed. so you don't sound so stupid with your excuses, and you happen to run into a player that's doing it at a high level with all the same responsibilities as you, running multiple businesses, right? And doing everything that you're excusing yourself from doing. So when I came up with these initial excuses, I know now why my coach would just smile at me, look at me like, you dumbass. Because it worked for me for so long. I mean, your stories may have worked for you for a long time. I mean, you got your husband on board, you got your wife on board, you got your kids on board, your friends, your coworkers, right? Because if you use your excuses with one of our top % producers out here, don't be surprised if they smile at you. But listen, you're not probably paying attention. I hope you do moving forward. So you can let go of those excuses, because the more you repeat it, the more factual it becomes. Whatever you feed into your brain is what you will produce in life. So I hope that now that I'm making you aware, when you get a smile on your end, just imagine what the other person's thinking, especially if you talk to some of our top producers. But most of us don't pay attention to that and pay attention to more the other non-producer. That you can give that excuse, oh, it's just tough. The market is so tough right now. It's hard to get buyers, it's hard to get sellers, right? And the other guy, the other non-producer is like, oh, yeah, it's so tough. Yeah, but no, you're doing everything. I'm doing everything too. We're both doing everything together, giving each other high fives, sticking to this ridiculous story. And when you find another person that believes what you believe, then you solidified that story. You solidified it. That's who you'll become. And you'll attach yourself and hold on to this story for months on end. So if anything, out of this, I want you to just pay attention to a real player, how they react when you tell them those ridiculous, stupid sounding stories. Because now, like looking back, I sounded really dumb and ridiculous. I sounded pretty pathetic. Because I didn't know who my audience was. Same thing goes with trying to complain to someone that's made it in business about how expensive things are. I remember doing that. Yeah, I was going to buy that computer, but oh my God, it's so expensive. It's so expensive. I was going to do this for my business, but I was going to hire an employee, but it's so expensive. Listen, if you get somebody jumping on your story and say, oh yeah, it is. I too was going to do that. Then you're in the wrong room. You're in the wrong crowd. Because I've done that. I forgot I was talking to a multi-millionaire. So when I'm talking about an expensive project or expensive this, again, all I got was that smile. Which meant, man, you sound ridiculous right now. Why don't you do something to create more money? Why don't you do to create more opportunities for yourself? You dumb kid, right? But it's these words that we constantly feed into our brains that become factual. And the problem is we solidify those lies as facts when we surround ourselves with other individuals at the same level or below you. And oftentimes we look for individuals that are below us to make us sound like we're at least doing something more than them. But again, if you walk into a room of people that are excelling, you shall excel. So if you're in a rut, if your business is not where it needs to be, maybe your conversations are with other non-players when they should actually be with real players and study what they do. Because my interpretation, I'm doing everything, AZ, to make it in this business means you're at an open house 5 to 7 days a week. It means you're going through this 12-week target book to the T every single day. It means you're texting everyone in your sphere. It means you're social media marketing from morning to night. So don't come to me. Don't come to one of these other players with your stories, aka excuses of why you don't have what you want. Because all you'll get from me is, and for those of you who can't see me, I'm smiling. Which means you sound ridiculous right now. Because we both know that you ain't doing shit. Those are the hard conversations you must have with yourself. I'm not saying have these to beat yourself up and make you feel small. I'm telling you to tell yourself things so you can shatter those stories and rise up, because you put a ceiling on yourself. And it's getting a little uncomfortable, don't you think? Because the ceiling is like 6 foot tall or like 5 foot tall. You barely fit in it. So you really want it? Then start acting like you do. Because it sounds like you want your stories more than anything else. So the same thing, this 30-day challenge. These individuals yearn to lose weight. They want to get in tip-top shape. I've tried everything. I've heard this a lot. I've tried everything. AZ, I eat good. Bro, you're 150 pounds overweight. What do you consider eating good? Like, go tell that to your other overweight friends and your family that supported you getting to that weight. Because all I'm going to do is smile and think to myself, you sound ridiculous right now. Because there's no way you can carry 150 to 200 pounds on you by eating well. Again, listen, I'm not here to ridicule you. I'm not here to belittle you. I'm hoping you shatter your own story because you sound ridiculous around other players. The problem is there's a commitment involved with doing great things. And like Carla said, just say you're not committed. Because your stories, and I believe that story, like that story is more believable than with all the excuses you tend to come up with. Just say that, and now it's fact. That's a real fact right there. If anything, if you don't have what you want, it's just you're not as committed. Because one thing I've learned about this life, one thing I've learned about this great nation we live in, is that if you really want it, if you put your best efforts each and every day, you will ultimately get what you want. But, again, you're being babied. You're being told it's okay. Don't push too hard. You've worked hard enough. You deserve a day off. But all your family and friends and college friends and cousins and coworkers, all of them are telling you, you look just fine. And that's one of the things that Carla's got too. It's like, oh, I don't need to lose weight. My husband's okay with the way I look. Then they lose 15 pounds, and the husband's like, oh my God. Or the husband starts getting into shape, and the wife is like, wow. Right? Because they've been even like catering to their own spouses. The same way they've been catering to you for your business. It's okay. I really don't want that vacation, husband. I know you're working so hard. I really don't want the fine things in life. We don't really need a new car. I don't need a bigger house. Because you've convinced the other party that you're incapable of. It's too expensive. It's too much. When for you entrepreneurs, there's no limit. The only limit are the thoughts that you feed yourself. And then you create it as fact. So, I challenge you over the next few days to continue to tell your stories, but just be more observant. More observant of who you're talking to. Do they automatically agree with you? Oh, yes, you have it so hard. You don't have a babysitter. Oh, yeah, I mean, you work really late. And I know you're so busy. So busy in business that's really not making you any money. Right? You're doing a lot of things. And when you say those things again, you're disregarding that somebody else has the same responsibilities as you. You're trying to pigeonhole yourself into this special person. That you're the only one with responsibility. You're the only one with time constraints. You're the only one. And guess what? The majority of people will support that story for you. They will solidify it for you. That is until you get that smile. And when you get that smile, that's probably a player. That's probably a top 1%er. That's probably somebody who's excelling in life. So again, do a little self-study. Do a social study, right? A social experiment with you being the mouse, the rat, right? The social experiment on yourself. And see who automatically agrees with you. Then they probably don't have what you want. They probably don't have, the people that agree with you probably don't have what you want. The people that smile at you have everything you want. Real easy. Right? These are the stories we must shatter. These are the stories we have to be aware of. We got to know our audience. We got to know our excuses. Because those are the very things that are holding us back. And a lot of these stories is what a lot of individuals walked into this 30-day program, and they absolutely blew the top off of this challenge. We had individuals that lost up to 27 pounds, up to 6 inches around their waist. We had people that built muscle that were thin, skinny, and they built muscle, 5 pounds of lean muscle. We have individuals that are fitting in clothes that they haven't fit into in years, all in 30 days. They shattered their stories of they can't. They solidified that they do have willpower. Just like our individuals that are producing at a high level, they shattered all those stories. They were tired of it. It wasn't creating the lifestyle that they desired. Because they started hanging around and being particular about who they listened to. And that's the problem. Oftentimes we listen to people that don't have exactly what we don't want. You want to be fit? Surround yourself with fit people. You want to be successful? Surround yourself with the success. You want happy marriages? Quit hanging around with your single friends. That's it, right? Simple. But again, this week is about having a social study. You're the social study, right? You're going to be the case study. Continue on with your stories and see who agrees with you. And then tell that story to a real player, see what they do. They'll just smile, just like my coach did. Just like Carla would do when I would tell her, I can never get abs, babe. She's looking at me like, you sound so stupid right now. Oh, I love it. We got to love it, right? We sound ridiculous. We got to love it. Again, this is not to, insult you in any way. We just got to get to a point where we're shattering these stories. We got to get to a point where we got to know our audience. We got to know our audience. And we got to understand that when we say it's too expensive, it's too hard, I'm too busy, I've tried everything, you're assuming that you're special. That you're the only one who's doing the right things and just the wrong results always come your way. And that's not the case. You just believe that story for way too long. It's time to shatter that, right? It's time to shatter that. And I had to do that with every aspect of my life. And I'm not just talking to you. I'm talking to a mirror right now. Everything about my marriage, I shattered. I had to shatter it because that story wasn't serving me, especially when I surrounded myself with real men that were delivering at a high level, that had the patience, the love, the respect. I had none of those things. And then I was jumping to the conclusion that Carla was the problem. The same stories that I thought I could never create with my business until I went to a different atmosphere and I saw how individuals were operating at that level. I'm like, oh shit, maybe I should let go of the story that I'm too busy. Right? And the same thing that I'm now doing with my kids, my daughters, how to be a real father, not just a tyrant, not just an authority figure, but a mentor and a coach. Guess what? I had to shatter the stories of how I was raised. Because all the people that saw me raise my daughters, they thought it was okay, the same way I was, but it's not. I'm here to give them an advantage, an unfair advantage. And that unfair advantage is my 42 years of this life. I'm going to pass on all that knowledge to them. They are 42 years ahead of where I was at their age. So again, let's surround ourselves with real players. And we have a lot of them here at Ease and Associates. We have a lot of them at your disposal. You're just choose the wrong people right now. And instead of like pushing yourself out of your comfort zones, all you're doing is wallowing in that comfort by finding other people that are saying the same things as you are. Come into the office, study, pay attention, and then compare it to your story. You'll be like, ah, damn, I'm not doing enough. Maybe I should let go of the story because my spouse is believing it, that I'm doing everything possible when I'm really not. Know your audience. Rise up to that audience. Get out of the one you're currently at. Doesn't mean you have to stop loving them. I'm just telling you, stop listening to them. Stop complaining to them. And you may notice me smiling a lot. And if I'm smiling at you, you know exactly what I'm thinking, okay? I hate to put it to you that way. You know exactly what I'm thinking. And you know what other players are thinking every time you come to them with your complaints. So again, there's a social study, there's a social experiment. And hopefully this will be one step closer for you shattering the stories and truly getting the life that you desire, because you deserve it. I promise you, you do. See yourself there. Your family deserves it. They really do. But it's going to come on the back of hard work and awareness, right? Awareness. So let's put that quote one more time, and I'm going to go over a few quotes. At the end of the day, just say you don't want to do it. Just say you're not committed, okay? So you don't sound so stupid with your excuses. I love it. I love it. Thank you, Carla. You smiled at me one too many times until you got frustrated and you just started calling me out. And I appreciate you for calling me out. And those of you that have been on the 30-day program, she just avoids smiling now. She just calls you out in your story. She's blunt about it. There is no apologizing with her. If like I'm apologizing before, I don't want to offend you. That's just part of my nature. I'm the nice guy, right? We got good cop, bad cop. I'm the good cop. Carla's like, you're lazy. You're full of shit. You don't have the willpower. Like, she's straight up. But we got to have people like that, because she's not here to sugarcoat. She's not here to really be your friend. She'll tell you that. I'm not here to be your friend. I'm here to lead you so you can lead yourself, so you can lead your family, and you can shatter those stories. Good cop, bad cop. So yeah, if you lean into the 30-day challenge, don't expect that niceness from her, but that's what we all need, because she will smack you with the truth each and every time. But she has this unique ability to like smack you with the truth and then make you feel all warm and fuzzy. I was like, thank you. As you're crying, you feel so appreciative. Right? Like those Sour Patch Kids. Sour and then sweet. It's like, it's amazing how she does that. And all of you know that have been and grown closer to her leadership, you understand that leadership, we all need it. And I heard that more than a handful of times. Like, I just needed the truth. I needed people to stop sugarcoating it for me. That's what I needed. I needed to look at the things that were not serving me. And it completely turned my life upside down for the better. It's been amazing, guys, and it only gets better. So let's go ahead and read some comments. Again, I want to thank you for joining me for this episode of Mindset Mastery. We have a comment here. Wow, you hit this one hard as hell. Once you break it all down and stop making the excuses, you have to face the reality that's really you that's limiting your self-growth. Hard to blame all the outside factors when you're not putting in 120%. It's real easy. I blamed a lot on Carla. My entire self-worth and emotions on a person. It wasn't her fault. It wasn't. But I was looking for a story, so I would go complain to my friends. Oh, yeah, it's your wife, dude. Yeah, you're right. She's unreasonable. She's this, she's that. Now I go to my parents. Oh, yeah, probably your wife. Right? They were babying me. They were keeping me low, as opposed to saying, why don't you rise up? Right? What if those friends back then told me, why don't you rise up and quit showing up like a boy? Right? Quit showing up like a little kid to a marriage. But none of them told me that. So all I did was feed into the story more and more until I ran into a real man that said, why don't you rise the hell up? You kid, you child, son. Right? Same thing for my business. Complain all day long to my colleagues. Oh yeah, it's so tough. Until I went to a multi-million-dollar producer. They're like, what? Come on, dude. Yes or no? There's no maybes. This is a hard lesson I learned years ago, all in. I love it. Real, right? All these stories. of why. And then all of a sudden you just shattered it. You're at a much higher level, dude. You're moving at high speed. And what's beautiful about this is you're on this path of continued growth and progression. It's not like you've put your feet up and you said, okay, I'm done. I'm good. I have a good living. You're like, I want more, right? Even when it's uncomfortable, you lean in. And that's why you're where you're at. Top 1% in life, right? Rudy, there is always a way. The only thing stopping us is the BS excuses we choose to accept just to bail ourselves out of doing what is required. And we tell these stories with passion, right, Rudy? We tell it with so much vigor and so relentless about it that we make others believe the same story. Until you run into Carla and she just smiles at you. And you know what she's thinking. But you know her good enough and well enough with good intentions that she calls you out on your BS, right? And for many years, Carla called me out on my BS, but all they did is create animosity and fights. I thought she was trying to attack me. And for you men, right, you may be thinking that your spouse is attacking you, your wife is attacking you, when in fact she sees something greater in you. She's not meant to bring you down. She's just calling you out on your BS stories. That's all she's doing. And you refuse to believe it. You're villainizing her. You're victimizing yourself. And you're telling all your friends of how bad the situation is because you're failing to rise. Bonnie, thanks again, AZ. You always talk the truth in your training. You make us realize that we cause our own pains and problems. We're the only ones capable of changing our lifestyles for the better. I have accepted the 30-day challenge. Bonnie, you're going to see massive changes, right? And what's beautiful about this, and ask any one of our 40 participants that went through the phase 1 and so excited about phase 2. I don't know if you saw the excitement through all the social media posts, but we're so excited to get back onto our game. We had 5 days off and we're just so elated because we love the way we feel. We love the clarity, the intention, and we also love the results that come from that. Not only physically, mentally, but also in our businesses. It's an unbelievable transformation. So I'm glad you're on it. Negotiating with ourselves simply needs to cease. Every time we negotiate with our mind, we give ourselves an out. Absolutely. Sometimes we just need to stop thinking about it and just do it, right? We can exhaust ourselves with so much mental, so much of that mental work that physically we get exhausted because we thought about it so much. And finally, don't surround yourself with yes men and women. Absolutely, right? And we have a lot of them in our lives. We do. And it's the people we love most. But listen, again, you can hear them, but just don't listen to what they actually have to say. It's like, go with people that are doing and have exactly what you want. Like, choose the people that you admire, and what are they doing? Like, the marriages you admire, or maybe it's the body that you admire, maybe it's the business that you admire. What are the things that they're doing, right? And learn from them. I hear stories in my head, and I sound like a little, and think about that. And push through by using it as fuel, right? And those are the harsh realities. It's telling yourself the truth because it sounds pretty ridiculous. It sounds pretty stupid, right? And like I've said before, what would it feel like? What would it be like if there was a camera following you all day long? Would it solidify what you're telling your family about how hard you work and that you've tried everything? Or would they just look at you in almost disgust and shame, right? Because the story doesn't align itself with the actions that you're actually telling them that you're doing. Guys, I want to thank you. And again, I'm glad you're not taking offense to it. Again, I'm the good cop. I always try to soften it up just a bit. All right. But I want to thank Carla for inspiring this conversation. And that's what I love, just asking her questions and watching her work, because, a lot of these mindset masteries are inspired by her thought process. She's just very unique on the way she operates life. And, she doesn't sit idle of I can't or I don't have enough time. She just figures it out. And running these 30-day programs, it's not that she had more time. She just decided to lose more time of sleep, but that makes her happy, and she didn't come up with an excuse, I can't do it, and this is on top of everything else. So I think it's a good lesson for all of us that, let's not just use it as an excuse or use a way out of how you can't lose weight, how you can't grow your business, how you can't fix your marriage or your relationships, or how you can't get your kids to listen to you. It's like we have to shatter all those things. Guys, again, thank you for joining me for this episode of Badass Agents. You can go to badassagents.com and also listen to the replay on Badass Agents podcast on your favorite podcast provider. Thank you again, and I will talk to you soon. Bye now. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Badass Agents Podcast, brought to you by AZ & Associates and Do the Work Coaching and Consulting. You can watch this and other episodes by subscribing to our channel on YouTube or by visiting us directly at badassagents.com. And of course, you can listen to this episode and many others on your preferred podcast provider.